The country has had to deal with a number of issues, particularly around the constitution and also what is happening in parliament. If you've been following Ghana's news, you would realize that the 8th parliament, for instance, had a lot of issues to an extent that even before the general election in 2024, there was this huge case between the Supreme Court and the Parliament of Ghana, with the speaker at the center of it and some MPs who are said to have either vacated or not vacated their seat. But now going into the 9th parliament, there are also issues. MPs, during the vetting of nominees, went into a brawl, as it were, destroying some public property. And in the midst of this, the conversation about the need to review Ghana's constitution has also come up. And these are the areas we want to look at. And we're privileged to have with us lawyer Sam Okudzeto. Lawyer Sam Okudzeto was a member until the 2024 general election, was a member of the Council of State. He's also been part of the General Legal Council as well as the Judicial Council. He's been a president of the Ghana Bar Association before, as well as one of the few individuals who's occupied or who actually represented the North Tongue constituency, which is now represented by the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. So we are here to delve into these issues. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure is mine.
Let me first find out from you, though. I was just referring to the recent brawl in Parliament, which led to the destruction of state property, microphones, tables, among others. What's your view, really, of what transpired?
Well, I must confess that I was shocked to hear about this happening in Ghana. It is true that we've seen brawls in Parliament in some other parts of the world. I don't associate that with the temperament of Ghanaians, because we love one another. We don't seem, even political divisions are not meant to be antagonistic to one another. It's just a question of different views. So when I heard that there was a brawl in Parliament, I just could not believe it, that our people will allow themselves to go to that extent.
To disgrace themselves, you'd say?
Well, yes, because I have been worried actually over the years about what I call copycats. That sometimes we see certain things on television and we think as if it's normal. So we also do it. But I don't believe that that is what it was meant to be. Ghana has been a torchbearer so far as democracy is concerned in Africa, because we were the very first country south of the Sahara to become independent from the British colonial rule. And since then, we thought that we have set a high mark and a standard for others to follow. And so, for members of Parliament, whom we normally call honorable, and I think when the title honorable is attached to you, I think it implies a certain kind of conduct and behavior which should be above board. It should be exemplary. Something that young people can look at and say, oh yeah, this is an honorable man, and this is what he will do. And so to find my children, more or less, I think I should call them my children, fighting in Parliament, throwing benches and breaking things, it's a shock to me. I can't believe.
It's a shock to you, you say, and you're saying that you don't associate that with the character of Ghanaians. No. But it's not the first time we've seen that happen in Parliament. We saw when the speaker who has been retained was elected, we saw somebody run away with ballot papers. We saw all of that. So it's not new.
No, I know all that, but then you see, even that compared to this brawling and fighting and actually throwing chairs, it's a different thing altogether. It's gone to a different dimension. That was bad already. What they did at that time was bad, because people are supposed to vote. So why do you carry a ballot box away? That means you are preventing the decision that has been taken by the majority to being valid. And that also is not honorable.
So is it perhaps time to remove the word honorable from their titles?
Well, perhaps it is more time for us to change our attitude and our conduct and behavior than merely just removing the title honorable. Because if you remove the title honorable, in fact, unfortunately now even members of assemblies are also being addressed as honorable, which of course even a shock to me, because previously we associate that only with MPs and ministers of state, but now even assembly members wanted to be called honorable.
Abuse of the word or the title.
Well, it is lowering. It's just lowering it to such a level that I don't think it is just the right thing to do. Perhaps we need to relook at that also.
The Speaker has had to suspend 4 members of Parliament as a result of that. Do you think he was in the right?
Well, I know. I mean, I was posed that same issue. Somebody raised it and said there was no law that entitles him to do that.
That's the former majority leader.
Yeah. Well, I said I haven't checked the law to find out whether in fact that is also part of the standing orders of Parliament. Perhaps it is not there. But I guess also that the Speaker is trying to show his revulsion of what transpired. And I guess maybe what he did was just to show that what they did was not honorable.
But the argument here is that he overstepped his boundaries.
Well,
do you agree?
If it is not in the standing orders, then of course it is true that he has overstepped his boundaries.
So I'll just read a bit of the standing orders to you. Specifically 130, it says that where a member is found to be in contempt of Parliament under Order 129, the member shall be suspended immediately from the House. And unless the House otherwise decides, the suspension shall be on the first occasion for 4 sitting days, on the second occasion for 8 sitting days, and on the third or subsequent occasions for 12 sitting days.
Well, I think the issue, of course, is that the behavior will amount to contempt, in the sense that a member is not supposed to do physical on the floor of Parliament. So I think I guess that's what the Speaker is trying to. He must have been so disgusted with what his colleagues, well, they are not his colleagues because he is the Speaker, so he's not a member of Parliament. What the members have done, sometime in the public parlance, we say that he has brought the House into disrepute. That means when your conduct is as such that it cannot be accepted by the public, we will say that you have brought the whole House into disrepute. And that is the basis for the contempt. And the Speaker exercises the power of contempt with the House, because they actually have a committee on privileges.
Privileges committee.
Whereby certain things can be referred to the privileges committee. And I believe this may be even one of them, that this matter should have been referred by the Speaker to the privileges committee.
So he jumped the gun?
Yeah, well, that is his charge. But he should have referred that matter to the privileges committee to deal with. And then it is the responsibility of the privileges committee to do the suspension, and then even to refer the matter for disciplinary action to be taken by the committee. So I think that it's in the interest of both sides to calm down and look at the situation that has happened and then try to find solutions to it. Because I think we have become so divisive in our politics that sometimes I begin to wonder, and I keep raising this simple question. I say, there is something I call national interest.
You think we've thrown that to the gutters or to the dogs?
Yeah, I think we should appreciate that there is something I call national interest. That MPs should often, even the both sides, should sometimes look at the thing and say, okay, what can we do in the national interest? Rather than taking this divisive view and say, I am this and I am that, or you are intimidating me and I don't want it to be intimidated. They can work together harmoniously, respecting one another, giving each other an opportunity to air his or her views. And even majority sometimes can be wrong. Sometimes we even forget that one, because the idea is that, okay, we are in a majority, we can do everything. No, I said no. It doesn't work that way. Even majority can be wrong. The important thing is that if you put your heads together in the interest of Parliament itself, and also in the interest of the country, I'm sure we can always live harmoniously. In
reviewing the Constitution, the latest team that has been set up by the president obviously cannot touch the standing orders of parliament, because those are things that parliament has put together to guard and guide, as it were, its own operations. But it certainly can look at what is in the constitution about parliament. I believe Article 93, which spells out MPs, even goes to the extent of the Speaker of Parliament, all the way through to Article 97. Based on your experience and what you know and what we've experienced so far, particularly with the eighth Parliament and now how the ninth Parliament is starting, what do you see in the Constitution you believe could be looked at to help strengthen Parliament, or as it were, supplement what the standing orders have?
Well, let's put it this way. A constitution only lays a framework. Sometimes we forget that in this country. We say, oh, this is not the constitution, this is the constitution. I said, no, you don't understand. If you look at the Constitution of America, it's just a small number of paragraphs or pages. Ours goes into details. And the more details you make, the more you create problems for yourself. Because it means that what is not there, you assume, can be done. When in fact, it may not necessarily be the best approach to the issue. So, when you make a constitution, the constitution lays down the framework by which governance takes place. You know that we have division of powers. You have executive power. You have legislative power. You also have judicial power. Now, those are supposed to be exercised by 3 different institutions. Sometimes I even hear MPs speaking as if they have power over the judiciary. So sometimes I get myself...
Well, we had that tested ahead of the election.
I get flabbergasted. I say, you have no power. The court can even pronounce what you have done in Parliament as unconstitutional. And they are the only one entitled to interpret the Constitution, not you.
But there's a thin line. How then do you ensure separation of powers?
That is the only way. That's what I'm talking about, that the separation of powers is there. Now, it is not the best, because when you have MPs...
What is not the best?
What we have now is not
where
the best.
The Supreme Court can...
No, you're not getting that. It's not the matter to do the judiciary at all. Because when I'm talking about, has nothing to do with judiciary. It's a question about the executive and the legislature. That's where the problem is. Because MPs are also ministers of state.
Our constitution allows that.
That is what I am against. I'm saying that the constitution needs to be looked at from that point of view, to talk about the separation of powers. That means the legislature should be distinct and different from the executive.
It has to be looked at. So in this case, we should remove that article that allows the president to select a percentage of MPs as his ministers.
This is the review that many of us have been crying about for many, many years, since this constitution came into force. In fact, I even remember that when in the Constitutional Assembly, and they were talking about this issue at that time, I was not in the Constitutional Assembly, but I had told my colleagues who were there to say that don't create a confusion by trying to marry the Westminster system of governance and the American system of governance. They are 2 separate institutions.
But we seem to have had 2.
Yeah, but that doesn't help us. In life, when you make a blunder, what do? You try to correct it.
And move on.
Exactly. So when they're talking about constitutional review, this is what I'm thinking they are thinking about, is to say that let's look at the Constitution and see how it has worked for the past 30 years. That if there are certain flaws in it, then let's look at those flaws. And one of the flaws that I am so much concerned about is this question about MPs being ministers of state.
So 0 ministers from MPs?
They should be ministers should come from outside Parliament and not within Parliament. Because Parliament job is almost full-time now. So you cannot be doing a full-time job and at the same time say you are running a ministry. And some of those ministries, I'm telling you, when you look at them, some of them have about, let's say, 12, 13 institutions underneath it. Now, what time do you have to be an MP and supervising all those institutions? It's nearly impossible.
It's nearly impossible. And you made a point earlier also about the more we put details in our constitution, the clumsier, quote unquote,
exactly, the problem you create. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So would you say that in this case, Article 97, which became the dominant article ahead of the 2024 general election, should be looked at again? Because the reason we had this back and forth with Parliament and the Supreme Court was because both Parliament and the court were interpreting this very article, particularly G and H, I believe, differently.
No, that one, there's no confusion. But what I'm saying is that it's the members of Parliament who just completely misconstrue the concept to appreciate that the Constitution is very clear that anywhere, even in the court system, where there is a reference to the interpretation of the Constitution, it is only the Supreme Court that has the power to do that.
So what the court did ahead of the elections wasn't wrong?
No, of course not.
But the Speaker called it an interference.
Oh, yeah, he can say so, but he is not the interpreter of the Constitution. He is not the interpreter of the Constitution. He has no power to interpret the Constitution as a Speaker of Parliament.
But that's why I mentioned the thin line between separation of powers and when Parliament feels threatened by other arms of government.
No, that's what I'm saying, that if you study constitutional law or constitutional principles, you will understand that the Americans use the term checks and balances, which means that you have power, but there's a check, there must be a check on that power.
When is the check and the balances too much to an extent that the other side will feel that it is being threatened? Why does it become
too much? If you are on the roadside now and somebody come and slap you, the temptation is to go and slap him back.
Tit for tat.
Exactly. But then you are forgetting that that's the reason why we have the police. That you're supposed to report the matter to the police.
So the point you're making with this example
and they will then take up the matter and have this person charged for assault. That's what it is. If you are here, somebody come and break your house, you don't just take a gun and start shooting the person. When you shoot the person, you've killed the person, or you hurt the person. That is a criminal offense.
So the point you're making with this example,
the matter is for the police. So I'm just trying to tell you about that. When you say checks and balance, that's the way it works. That is not a question of saying that somebody is interfering with my right. When the person is doing nothing more than interpreting the Constitution of the land. And the only person authorized under the Constitution to interpret is the Supreme Court. Not just court, so I say Supreme Court. Because even if the matter arose in the court, which involves interpreting the Constitution, the court is supposed to suspend that issue and refer it to the Supreme Court for interpretation.
But you know, one of the arguments, even in the same Constitution, it talks about such cases being within the High Court and not the Supreme Court. And that was also part of the argument from those who supported the Speaker.
No, again, it's a confusion of terminology in the sense of that. Meaning that they said the question of, let's say, election, if there's any dispute, it should go to the High Court. But then, does it prevent the Supreme Court from interpreting the Constitution? No. If the question requires interpreting the Constitution, the High Court must refer that matter to the Supreme Court for interpretation.
So in your opinion, this Article 97, as we move into reviewing the work that has been done as regards the Constitution, review of the Constitution, it doesn't have to be touched.
It is not irrelevant. You see, that's what I'm saying, hair rearing. You know, we just look at the matter and say, okay, because this matter arose like that, so therefore we should review the Constitution. No, I think it's completely wrong.
So this is clear enough. We don't have to touch it.
The problems in that Constitution is the power which is given to the president, which is very, very much unlimited. This, to me, that is where the problem is, that the power is unlimited. Because if you have one person whom you say should appoint people to hundreds of institutions, where does he have the time to do that? I mean, what? I mean, is he a Superman? He's not a Superman.
It means that you agree with the previous suggestion from the work done, which recommended that there should be the reduction of the powers of the president, because as we speak, the president appoints heads, particularly heads of independent institutions, like the police, the IOCO, we have Electoral Commission, National Intelligence Bureau, and the rest. You agree with that completely?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's been my stand all along, because I'm telling you that when the Constitutional Assembly was actually doing the Constitution, I told my colleagues there, I said, please, don't confuse the British system with the American system. that the two cannot work together. And that if you load the president with so much power, it is not that because he is dishonest or anything like that. The temptation is there. And then particularly because you have political parties, people are lobbying for positions. That's what they do. You heard about somebody being appointed by the president now, and then some group went and said they are party members. They don't see the reason why that person should be appointed. Now, who has the power to appoint? Those people or the president?
Well, per our constitution is the president.
Exactly, but you will see they were vandalizing properties and the rest of them based upon that. And I'm saying that no, if we want the constitution to work, then we should make sure that we don't load the president with so much that it might seem as if he's abusing it, when indeed it is not him doing it, but the system created it. Because once you made the system loose like that, you find the party people think that it's time for their job. This is the time for us to be employed.
So we'll continue on this tangent, but I just want to be sure that we have finished with Article 97. In your view, it is clear enough, there's no need to touch it, even in this latest work that is coming
I'm saying that the constitutional interpretation is the right of the Supreme Court, and nobody has any right to do that. Once you interfere with that, you create a problem for yourself, because you are creating people who will be sitting down interpreting constitution.
Yes, but as we have it now, that article doesn't have a problem.
No,
it is interpretation of it.
I don't think that is what the problem is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now moving on, continuing with the bit about the reducing the powers of the president. I'm sure that as part of this, we have had this brouhaha even surrounding the IGP and all of that. At the stage where we have the constitution as it is, until a new one, quote unquote, has been adopted after the work has been done, would you suggest that perhaps those who are thinking perhaps the IGP has been political, etc., and therefore he must go, you would support that based on what we have now, that he should be removed?
I don't even understand why they are drafting it. Because if there has been any, I have watched this country since independence. If there has been any person who is level-headed and strict to do the right thing, it is the current IGP, Dr. Dampare. I think that people just think that when there's a change of government, there must also be a change of everything. We cannot have continuity in a country like that. It makes no sense.
But you know, even ahead of that, there were people agitating against him, wanting him to be removed, even ahead of the election.
No, because you are forgetting something. When you know the nuances, you find out that there are people even within with his own outfit,
sure,
who are lobbying for that position. And that's why they agitate the politicians to go and making those. What allegation have they brought against you that he has done wrong? Who shot them?
So, for instance, the media has complained about he destroying communication system within the media. Now, everything has to be he speaking or he organizing a press conference. Police officers in the region and districts can't speak anymore.
Police officers and this is speaking on, what are they speaking on?
On issues within their parameters.
Yeah, but you're forgetting something. Where do you have PRs in institutions? It is to prevent distortions. Where this person says this, another person says that, then you are not even sure which one is the right one.
But in the U.S., when incidents happen, you have county representatives speaking to the media.
Because the system is so structured. Look, the mayor is an elected officer, answerable to the people in his area. So everything that happens in the area, the mayor automatically is confronted. Within that, you have a governor. He's an elected official. So something happened in the state. Everybody looks to the governor, not to the president, but they look to the governor. The thing is structured that way. We have no structured ours. This is what I'm complaining about.
So the call to remove the IGP is much ado about nothing.
Exactly. I'm sure it's saying that it does not make any interest because we think that because there's a change of government, everybody else must be thrown out.
Including even the call to remove the EC chair and the deputies.
Well, I heard it, I was laughing. I said, you are making allegations. What concrete thing do you have? This confusion in the election process, who caused them? They laid down, the Electoral Commission was making a pronouncement upon pronouncement to say that elections are won at the polling station.
So you're satisfied with the performance of the EC?
That is that. So when you go vote and go home, when you finish voting, go home. The political parties have representatives at the polling station. They should stay there and the votes are counted. They tabulate it. They have copies of the pink sheet. They transmit this information to their own headquarters. How did Dr. Bawumia come to announce, even about midnight, that he has lost the election? How did he come to do that?
Well, of course, they had their own tabulation.
Exactly.
So you're saying EC did nothing wrong with this election?
I cannot say anything EC wrong. But when they say ballot boxes should be taken, somebody went on the radio and television to announce that follow the box. Follow the box to go and do what?
But what about the EC announcing results when it knew that it didn't have all the polling stations?
It is not the EC.
And later coming back to say that they were under duress.
That is part of the problem, because in some places like that, they even held gun, they held EC officers, forcing them that they should announce that this person has won. That's a whole host of confusion, because we have become a country of hooligans. What's the meaning? It's hooliganism of the West caliber.
I mean, you're a lawyer, and one of the things that got people upset was when the Electoral Commission decided to reorganize the elections in these areas, because it said that they were declared without certain polling station figures, as it were, although its members declared them before that. And when people felt that there's nothing in the CI 127 which kind of guided the elections, there's nothing inside that said that the EC could go ahead and redeclare after everything had been done.
Holy. When there is confusion between the political parties as to who has won, and they say, okay, there are pink sheets. Let's recollect. You bring your pink sheets. Everybody brings your pink sheets. Let's go through the pink sheets and see what it says. And what it says is final.
And some didn't have it.
How can they not have the pink
They said they didn't have it, but they went on to make
Were they not at the polling station? Were they not there when the votes were counted? How can they say they don't have it? No, because that is who does not provide it. That's the lie of lies. It's the lie of lies.
I'm talking about the political parties.
I am telling you that many of them are doing deliberately. Many of them are doing the thing deliberately. When they go and say that they didn't have the pink sheet, how can they not have pink sheet? Do you remember the issue that arose in the constitutional dispute that was held in the Supreme Court? When they came and they were confronting the General Secretary.
You mean the election petition?
Exactly. When they confronted the Secretary of the NDC.
Then, Johnson
to ask him about these pink sheets like that.
You mean 2012, 2013 election petition?
Yes, I followed it clearly. What was his answer? He doesn't know. How did he not know? And you remember Dr. Bawumia went the witness box with all the calibration, the figures. How does one party have the figures and one does not have the figures?
But you know, in some cases, they even allege that the Electoral Commission changed some stuff on the pink sheet.
That is also an impossibility, because if you bring the, that's why they say bring the pink sheet. If you bring the pink sheet and anybody make an alteration in it, it will be seen.
In other words, or in summary, what you're saying is that the EC, as far as you're concerned, did what it had to do, and therefore these calls for the removal of chair and the deputy, even the latest going as far back as what happened to the Guan constituency, the people of South.
I am telling you, because I am in Ghana here. I heard these murmurings long before the election about how they wanted Jean Mensah to be removed. I knew that all along. They'd be saying it. And I had even warned her about it, that she should be careful, because some people are deliberately conspiring just to tarnish her. You know, there was a proverb that I learned some time ago, and it says, you don't throw feces at politics, and then you turn back and call it dirty. You don't throw feces at politics, and then you turn back and call it.
So they set you up and accuse you of being wrong.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying.
They would deliberately do something to create confusion, and then they go back and start accusing you that you are the cause of it.
So there's no point in attacking the Electoral Commission. My understanding of what you're saying.
How did they come to declare John Mahama as president?
Let me.
No. I'm posing the issue. How did he come to declare? Who declared him to be the president?
It was Jimensa who did,
exactly.
Eventually.
Based upon what?
But
based upon the
yes,
but also the fact that the NPP candidate declared that from the figures that I have lost the election. So I'm congratulating the other person whom I think has won. That's a civilized way of doing it.
I want to move on from there to still staying with a review of the Constitution. Again, from the previous review that was done, one of the proposals they made was that the Council of State, for instance, should be made a second chamber. And if you remember, many months ago, when we had a conversation and I asked you the question about the relevance of the Council of State, you talked about even the resources needed for you to be able to function well. In this review, they are talking about make it a second chamber of parliament. What do you think about that?
Well,
and should it be considered in this latest work coming up?
Well, again, they are just looking at what happens all around the globe. It varies from country to country as to how the second chamber functions. Britain has a second chamber. It's called the House of Lords. You find out that people are there by virtue of their royal position. Some are there because they were bishops. Some were there because they were honored by the state and made lords, and therefore they are there. And it's a more of a permanent institution than the House of Commons, because people are there for many, many years. Their experience, their knowledge, and maturity is all there to play. America is an elected office, but then there also you find out that whereas in the House you have 4 years, in the Senate you have 6 years. So there is an overlap. You get the picture. There's an overlap. Because the danger we are having is when you're going to have members of the Council of State for 4 years, then you are going to have members of Parliament and the President for 4 years. And then it means that at the end of 4 years, all of them go. There's no continuity. There is no back knowledge, experience, and so on that somebody can guide the other ones. That's the danger that we are going through. And so these are the things that, if we are talking about succession, we are taking into consideration. Is it possible, for example, to have specific institutions to elect their members to that house, who then can have the experience and knowledge? For example, you have chiefs. Now, you only have the president of the House of Chiefs in the Constituent Assembly. But there's no reason why you cannot have even a certain number of chiefs. So
you buy into that idea, but it must be done properly to ensure there's continuity.
Exactly. You may even have institutions like Trade Union Congress, a big organization, where they can actually have elected members to that house. That brings their experience and their expertise to bear. I mean, there are so many things that can be done. I'll tell you that the example in 1968, when we had the Constituent Assembly to consider the Constitution, various groups and institutions in the country elected their own members into the Constituent Assembly. The Ghana Bar Association did, the Medical Association did, the TUC had their representative, even the youth of Ghana. I was representing the Ghana National Youth Council and that Constituent Assembly. And you find out that the blend of talent, knowledge, experience, and the rest was amazing to help that house in drafting the Constitution. So these are the kind of things that I have been thinking about. I'm sure others may disagree with me.
Well, the team perhaps may want to, I'm sure there are other, including what you said, decisions or suggestions that have come as well that they may want to consider moving on or doing this work. Again, there's also the bit about institutionalizing the National Development Planning Commission, because I mean, look at what we did with the 40-year plan, just gathering dust and not necessarily implementing it, allowing politicians to rather implement their quote-unquote manifestos and political campaign promises. I want to suspect that you want to believe with the idea that we should be able to institutionalize this so we are national focus rather than political parties focus.
Well, actually, I had an opportunity where on the Council of State to spend quite some time with the National Development Commission, and had discussions with them, see certain flaws and so on and so forth. And I realized that they have actually done a lot of work, which is documented. But then, people think that the party's manifesto should be substituted. And I said, then what is the purpose in having it? Because a nation should have, let's say, a 5-year development plan, a 10-year development plan, a 50-year development plan, even a 100-year development plan. There are many things that you cannot do as a government in 4 years when you are in office. Impossible. But then when you have the plan, it means that the next successive government will do what? They will build upon it. I always try to make reference to this, and I say that when they say Rome was not built in a day, and I asked people that they understood it. I said the meaning of that is that what you see called Rome was built by successive emperors. Successive emperors. One does it, another one will add, another will add, another one will add. But here, we think that it's a 4-year, when you are in power, this is what you do, so you can boast and say, I did this and I did that. But what can you do in 4 years?
So you agree with institutionalizing this so there is that continuity, irrespective of which political party comes to power?
The program is there to be followed. It can be reviewed. It may be added. But at least things will be done. Let's take it that you think it's a good idea to have a railway line. A railway line. Now, this is one of my obsessions again. And I say railway line from Tema, join with Takrady Harbour, right? And then you move it all the way to Bolga, and then to Burkina Faso, to Niger. Goods lands here, straight away, they are put on the train. The trains are running 24 hours a day, right? There's no night, there's no day. And they carry the thing. Isn't that good? But how many years will it take you to build that railway line? It's not 4 years. Even the road network we are talking about, the same thing. You see that, okay, the best way is to have a road from here to there, and you start it, but you know that your national budget, annual budget, cannot fund it. But then you build a portion of it, the next government will come
and continue.
This is my view of national development.
You talked about reducing the excessive powers of the executive vested in the president. Again, one other thing that has come up is improving transparency in terms of appointments at the judiciary. How would you expect the current team to work with that as well when it comes to the powers of the executive in appointing, for instance, the Chief Justice and a few other people within the judiciary?
Well, there is a judicial council supposed to be responsible for making proposals for appointment. Now, the issue would be, is that being followed? Britain and some other countries like that, they have even a group, an appointment committee that vests people like that. In fact, I even remember trying to remind someone that when I was a student in England, we found out that many of the judges are based upon the Chief Justice finding a distinguished lawyer, a distinguished lawyer who is a Queen's Counsel, because that's the highest rank you can get in the legal profession. And then he says, we are considering you for appointment as a judge. Because of the man's brilliance and his, cases he's been involved in and so on and so forth. So this is the way they are. But now we allow people to apply to become judges. And sometimes you look at some of them, or you appear before some of them, and you may see that something is wanting.
So we should review that process.
Yeah, if we can, but if you are talking about the review of the constitutional process, these are the things I'm thinking that we should be doing. To look at certain institutions to find out whether indeed the appointment should be based upon political affiliation, you understand? Or we should have an independent institution responsible for some of those. Or
they should actually dig deeper, because sometimes we get to find out that these individuals have had political interest when, they are taking through the vetting or they are being questioned before we get to know.
I know, because you may not know, but others will know. You understand? But I'm saying that if we make it a point that we want the best qualified people for the job, and also my view is that some of them irrespective of their political affiliation, if they have the know-how, the experience, that can be useful for the country, then we should forget about these party matters. Because you heard about someone being appointed and then there was a hula bally that he was not a member of the NDC. And yet they were saying that because it's not everybody who wants to be involved in partisan politics. I mean, we need to understand that.
Tied to this is the decoupling of the Ministry of Justice and Attorney General. Is that something you support? Because even with the latest appointment, we still realize that it's meshed. Dominic Ayine, he's going to be responsible for the two.
Well, I am also one of the few individuals who think that the Attorney General should be a separate institution and not the Minister of Justice. The Minister for Justice should be a political position, but the Attorney General should be more of a technical job than anything else. That's my view also. How it can be crafted, I'm not.
Why do you hold that view? You think that it will help with our justice system better?
Well, you can just see what had just happened when some people were immediately there was a change of government. The cases were withdrawn against them and so on and so forth.
But that's what all the governments do when they come to power.
No, I'm not blaming a particular government. Please don't misunderstand me. I am not blaming any particular government. I'm just saying that when the institutions are left like that, that is exactly the result that will happen. Because it will mean that if I have a case in court and even though I may be convicted, if I can drag it on and play games with the court system, adjournments, and I'm sick, and so on and so forth.
When your party comes to power.
When my party comes into power, they are likely to do what?
To acquit you.
Yeah, go free. Away with it.
Having made that point, have you ever had a thought about whether or not there's a need to clarify the position of the vice president? Because others think that perhaps in this latest attempt to make our constitution better, we need to have clear roles for the vice president. Of course, he's the chair of the police council, a few other things that he does, but we should have better clarity than what is there.
Well, the question, of course, is that whom are you electing? That's the problem. Whom are you electing? You are electing a president, right? And you say that you have a right to choose somebody to be your
assistant,
running mate. No, not assistant. You know, so it's not an assistant, to be your running mate. So they choose the person to become your running mate. And you know that when you are not going to be in the country, the person will be called acting as president. Even though technically we know that that person does not have any power to take any drastic decision on matters. So is it a convenient tool? We can look at other jurisdictions and find out what is the best practice. You know, this has actually been one of my theories, is to say that nobody is reinventing the wheel. And so when we want to do something, let us scout around the globe and find out what is the best practice so that we can adopt it, you know. So linked with this one is also the fact that you are appointing your mayors and the rest by the president. To whom to do your allegiance? Not to the area.
Because you can't buy the hand that fits you.
Exactly. But it shouldn't be. I can tell you that I don't know of any country, and I've studied countries so many, most of them, they are all elected officers.
So you want our mayors to be elected,
the mayors should be elected,
including even the assembly members, the lowest part of our local government system. They should all be elected.
When they are elected, they know they owe a duty and responsibility to who?
The communities.
The community. So if I can see thus far my gutters are choked, I have a right to look for my assembly member or the mayor. And I go to him and I said, if you don't have that thing removed within 1 week, I will go around and I will campaign against you and you will be out. What do you think he will do? He will make sure that the place is clean.
Any other thing you would want the committee to look at in reviewing the constitution?
There are a lot of things in it that people can argue about. Maybe it's what you might call head wearing, because they are not so important. And Constitution is not the document also we want to be amending. If you see the number of amendments that the American Constitution over 300 years or so have done, you begin to understand we should just take a decision and do one major change. I think the concept is that it's not that we should be amending Constitution. Rather, we should look at these major structures once these measures structures are in order, the rest can be done by legislation, because legislation means that you can change them as and when they become necessary. I think so.
Okay. Having made that point, congratulations on the award given to you by the president.
Oh, thank you.
But you know, others have raised issues about the kind of people who got the awards. They feel that the awards were given to cronies and people who did not necessarily deserve it.
Well, let's put it this way. If you look at the award system as the way it is, it's a huge thing. And sometimes people, they just talk about award and then they look at that. They don't realize that there are categories within that award. That I was given the star. That's the highest that one can do. I had the order of the voter before. So Kufuor gave me that. Most people don't even realize that. And even at that time, I even remember Kufuor was being queried as to why he didn't give me the star, because they thought that the things that I have done for the country, both inside the country and outside the country, in Rotary, International Bar Association, all those things like that, that is what I deserve. Okay, I tell people that nobody deserves anything. An award is a recognition. So if they don't recognize you, fine. If I'm not recognized, I was telling somebody yesterday, I say, you know, I will exchange the crown for the old rugged cross. And to me, that's a better aim in my life than anything else.
So you talk about different categories, and the name that was prominent in it was, for instance, Howard Kumsin, the former fisheries minister. They felt that for those who are criticizing the award on social media, felt, what did she do? Even at her vetting, if it wasn't that the MPs wanted to pass it, she shouldn't have even passed.
Well, I am not here to stand in judgment against individuals, because that also would not be a right thing for me to do. They have the right to make their comments. But I even remember that I was telling the president that in Britain, I know that they actually have a commission, a small group that is responsible for national honors. And what they do is that they will have categories in the terms of entertainment, in terms of sports or arts, in terms of medicine, other intellectual things like that. And so they'll be looking at those and see those who are classified as being most outstanding. Sometimes it's actually the people within that same group that will nominate the person. And then these are the ones that to give either MBE or whatever it is like that. I was telling him that maybe something like that we should institute in the country.
So having said that, you would agree that perhaps not everybody who got the award deserved it?
Well, this is not the first time. It's been going on for many, many years. But I'm just saying that perhaps some may be more deserving than others. There may be some who are less deserving than others. It's possible. But I'm not in a position to make judgment. But I'm only making things based upon my own knowledge and experience, is to say that if we have an independent group like that in existence, then it will not be a question of the person is my friend, so I give him an honor. You understand?
The statue that was built for the president in the Western region, the controversies around it, and eventually the demolition of it. What's your own thought about it?
The president didn't erect that statue, did he? I don't think that he erected it. I think some people in that area must have been appreciative of the thing that he had done for them. That's the reason why they erected it.
People think when he got to know of it, he could have just said, because no living person should allow statue to be built for him or her.
Again, we all have different ideas and different views. You've seen Dankwa Circle, isn't it? Have you seen Dankwa Circle? Yeah. If you go to your Hansard, you will see that it was I who moved a motion in Parliament to say that we need to recognize our leaders, our political leaders who have fought so much for Dankwa in particular. I mentioned Dankwa. That indeed we should even create a chair at Legon in his name and then have places like that. I know that time his own part, because I was the other side of the political divide. I was the NAL. I was NAL. And the Progress Party, which now became MPP,
yes,
they were the one in power. Some of them were angry because it came from me and not from them. So I'm just using it to tell you that all these are things that we ought to be doing. Right now, you said that universities were named after certain individuals, isn't it? And a lot of the universities are being named now after individual as an honor. Well, it is the responsibility of people to do that. If you think that somebody has made an achievement, you recognize that person, and then this becomes something for even the young ones to emulate and say, perhaps if I also work hard diligently, if I can achieve this and I can achieve that, I will also be appreciated.
So you disagree with those who think that the president should have said, no, it's not necessary?
That one is none of my business.
What advice do you have for this new administration, the second term of President John Mahama?
Well, he has 4 years only, and it's an opportunity for him to take his time.
Take his time. He has 4 years on, and you added only.
Oh, yeah. It is only 4 years because there's no repetition. That's the reason why I use the word only. Yeah. But I'm saying that he can look at the national issues, see where there are problems, and see which one he can concentrate on and do well. Because it's so easy to scatter yourselves, and in the end you find out that you don't have much to show for what you have done. So this would be my advice to him.
So far you are impressed with the appointments, Attorney General, Finance, and the rest?
Well, it's not a question of whether I am, what's his name?
Impressed or not?
Impressed or not, you know. Somebody has to be there. And this is the person he has chosen to be there. So that is...
You think they will do a good job? Dominic Ayina, I'm sure you know him.
That's our prayer for all of them. A prayer for all of them is to say that, look, you've got a job. Put party aside. If you want to hold on to party, you'll be a failure. Put party aside and see the best you can do. Even if you like, you can even do something I suggested long ago. I say, put, this day you have internet. This day, previously we didn't have it. I say, ask people to make suggestions to you. I say, if anybody has any suggestions as to how you can improve the job you have been given to do, let them send it to you. You'll be amazed to see. You'll be flooded. And then if you want to be civilized, what I would suggest is that set up a system whereby there will be an automatic response thanking the people for the suggestion that they had made. You'll be incredible. And then thereafter, get some officers whose job is to do what? To look at the suggestion box and see what we can pick from those suggestions which can enhance the job that we've been given.
Your final word, sir?
That's my final word, and I'm just wishing Ghanaians that happy 2025. We have 4 years again to work the country, and let each of us vow to put our best. Whatever we think can be done, let's bring it out. Let's not be intimidated by party affiliations and the rest of them. And let's work together. This is a proud country, and I'm a proud Ghanaian. And I can tell you, since I have been involved in international organizations, that I go to places, and when I mention I'm from Ghana, the level of admiration that they give to me, not because I'm brilliant than anybody else, but it's so encouraging. And this is what I want, that we should all be proud Ghanaians and feel proud of our country. So whatever we can do and work together to ensure that Ghana holds that image of pride in the world, we should do it.
Thank you so much, Councillor Okudzeto, for speaking to us.
Thank you.
And you just watched our conversation with Sam Okudzeto, who is a senior lawyer, immediate past member of the Council of State, also was with the General Legal Counsel, as well as some other positions that he's occupied. A former member of North Tongue constituency in the Volta region, a constituency now held by, or being managed by, the Member of Parliament for Samuel Okudzeto.
By my nephew. Always forget that. You must always
by nephew. Okay, I didn't think that you wanted me to mention that.
No, it's my nephew. I mean, that's no.
Okay, so nephew, who's taking over from his uncle, the North Tongue constituency, who is now the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Thank you so much for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of our programs.